Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to a new and improved Sports Extra. I'm your host, Ahmed Nawaz. We're going to be changing the game. We're going to be bringing you so much of new content in a new way, in a different way that you've not seen before on television when we talk about sports. And like I said, it's going to be new, it's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be exciting because we're going to be the game changers for you, bringing you this new edition of Sports Extra. And joining me is...
Hello viewers at home, I'm Sabil Hazer. I will be your sports analyst and I will be helping discuss all of this new content we're looking to bring to you.
And next up we have with us as well the fantastic gentleman sitting with the grey suit on.
Yes, I'm K. Asif, and guys, I'll be supporting to these guys and I'll be discussing with these guys cricket, more sports, football and stuff like that. And I'll be enjoying with these guys as well.
We're enjoying chaos. We're going to have a lot of fun, but at the same time, we're going to stick to the traditional sports that you've seen, and also some unconventional things that have been happening in the world of sports. We're going to be bringing you all of this exciting roundup of sports. Let's take a look at what we're discussing tonight, and then we'll definitely start off our discussion. So first of all, we're going to be starting off with cricket, and the top story tonight for cricket is that the New Zealand Cricket Board has confirmed that they will be touring Pakistan in the December-January period of 2022 and 2023. That's where they'll play 2 test matches and 3 one-day internationals. And then they'll be coming again in April of 2023, where they will be playing ODIs and T20. So that will be a white ball tour for Pakistan as well, where we will see that the New Zealand team will be involved in majority of the white ball matches as well. So great news. Obviously there was an onus on them as well after they scrapped a tour, and I think it was about time that they made these commitments again. And up next we will be discussing the Ashes. Australia have beaten England in the second test match by 275 runs. Chai Richardson took 5 wickets as Marnus Labuschagne was declared player of the match. England's troubles continue as they fail to once again answer to the Australian pace attack and also the Australian batting lineup that has been surprising all this Ashes as well. A bit of a hard fact, we got a double century from England's side. It was Joss Buttler, but the double century was on the number of deliveries he faced. So it wasn't on the run score corner as well. And then, of course, unfortunate way to end the innings as he was gone hit wicket. So Australia continue to dominate, but England need to find an answer with 3 test matches to go. Coming towards football now, the English Premier League is now burdened with COVID and suspensions and everything happening. We discussed it before as well, that COVID is hampering some of the games with the possibility of suspension. To that, we've got sports that have been affected by COVID, but the concept of a bubble, COVID SOPs and vaccination is something very important. And after that we're going to be discussing, we'll be discussing Arsenal's performance. Chelsea's title hopes have been hit with another draw. So a lot to discuss on the Premier League as well. So this is all that we're discussing tonight, starting off with cricket, like I said. And big news when we come and talk about New Zealand, who have committed to a tour. And obviously when we talk about integrity, we talk about morality in sports, about setting an example, then New Zealand has got some very strong values. So Sabil Hazer, you would agree that after they scrapped the tour without any justification, without any reasons, it was about time that they had to recommit again, because they were answerable not to the entire world but even to their own nation as well.
Yes, I think we were all expecting them to come back to Pakistan at some stage and finish this tour, and this tour was always going to be completed. Now, the issue for me is, well, they come the next time, will there be another security concern that causes them to leave, or will it be another issue? The problem is, we don't even know what led them. They said it was a security threat. We don't actually have that much from their end as to what the details of that were. We've had a lot of rumors. We've had some information come out from Pakistan, some from them, but we don't know exactly what went on and what led to this and how it started, where it began, when it became serious. Now, those issues lead me to believe that any country that comes here could leave based on information that may or may not even be valid. Our security has been top-notch for international athletes. Yes, I understand with the history of this country and the fact that there have been terrible things that have happened here to visiting teams. The Sri Lankan team obviously is still very vivid in all of our memories. We're not ever going to be able to wipe that off our slate. That's always going to be on our record. But since then, we have made massive strides, and players who do come from foreign nations talk about the VIP security they get here that they would never get in any other nation. So hopefully when New Zealand come this time, I hope the arrangements are going to be the same. Our arrangements were good last time as well, but I hope they're satisfied with it and they're able to continue and finish the tour and see it through to the end.
I think Sabeel is right when he mentions this point that we've been giving presidential level securities to entire teams that have been visiting Pakistan, and without conclusive evidence that you could share with the host government, it's absolutely absurd that you go on to cancel the tour. But K. Asif, we see this as a positive development for cricket to come to Pakistan. We know Australia is coming in March, but after that in December, January, if we've got New Zealand and then New Zealand again for a white ball tour right before the Champions Trophy takes place in Pakistan, it's a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And to be very honest, that it's a very good news for Pakistan and the cricket lovers, that because Pakistan is missing this cricket for a long time. And what happened the last time that an electronic mail had been initiated from our neighbor country, and that the Martin Guptill and rest of the players, couple of more players, they've been threatened by through that email, and each and everything was finished, and we have seen that Pakistani were waiting for that tour. But as Sabeel mentioned, that the rest of the teams like Sri Lanka, South Africa, and Bangladesh, Windies, recently they came, and now New Zealand, they announced that they're coming in December and Jan, and later on in April 2023 as well. So I think that I would love to watch Kane Williamson playing in Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium, National Stadium Karachi, Gaddafi Stadium Lahore. I would love to watch, everybody love to watch that Trent bowling Babar Azam here in Rawalpindi, in Lahore, in Karachi. So, as we've discussed earlier as well, that the Pakistani, they put on cricket as second religion. So now this is the time that the rest of the test playing nation, they should understand that the Pakistanis are missing this cricket for a long time. But as you said that, Ahmed, that the presidential security had been given to them, and then if they were not satisfied, what next? So that now it's a good news for Pakistan, and credit goes to definitely the government of Pakistan, security forces, and Chairman Cricket Board Pakistan.
Yeah, obviously you can't have Superman guarding you all the time. So obviously you've got the best, and we've got to admit the fact that our security agencies really deserve a lot of credit with the way that they've been putting up, and with everything involved, the local management, district management, everybody deserves a lot of credit, and there's no reason why cricket should not happen in Pakistan. That being said, December and January is when you will see 2 test matches take place, along with a couple of ODIs as well in between, and then they come back in April for an ODI and T20 series. But that will be that. New Zealand will be coming to Pakistan. Before that, we've got Australia. England also plans to come, and then the Champions Trophy. So a lot of cricket in Pakistan. Moving on now to the Ashes, which needs to be given some highlight as well. And in the Ashes, it's been completely one-sided. England, Australia, you want to see a competition. I still remember the test match in England where Ben Stokes just took it away single-handedly on the last wicket. That was some competition for even Australia and England in England. But when England go to Australia, it becomes a completely different scenario. And Sabeel, there is something about the Australians that, they won't let you dominate on home soil, whatever the case is.
I think in my lifetime, the most dominant team I have seen is obviously we grew up watching Australia win World Cup after World Cup, and we saw a very dominant side appear then. Ponting's Australia, in my mind, he's still one of the greatest captains I've seen, and that team in my mind I can remember it very well. So that's something throughout history we've seen them dominate at home. As for England, I think anybody going into this tour thought, yes, Australia are the favourites. I remember hosting this show once actually in your absence, and I was speaking to our guests, and I said, well, for me it does seem like, this was right after the first day of the first test, and I was like, this is an England side that looks like it could be whitewashed by Australia. They don't seem to have the strength. They don't seem to be playing with the same confidence. When you're facing 200 odd balls and it still seems like you don't really know what your game plan is after settling in, it's very, very odd to me. And I think England really have an issue in well, I wouldn't say in test cricket. They have a very good setup and they'll always be fine in general. But something about them going to Australia and just them as a test nation right now, it's not what we'd expect from them, especially getting dominated in the Ashes the way they are right now.
Well, they say everything has a silver lining, and I think Australia completely bashing England, that's the word to put it. has its silver lining that Sabeel has now got a lot of interest in knowing how Australia has been achieving this. So that's a good sign for us that, cricket transcends all boundaries. But K. Asif, let me be very honest. I've been so excited about the Ashes, and cricket lovers have been whenever the Ashes takes place. But let me be honest, this is really one-sided, and it's come to a point where it's actually boring because Australia is going to dominate.
Yes, that's right, and you give credit much to the Pat Cummins and his company that the way they are playing and the way they are behaving. As Sabeel mentioned, that their mindset, they always play brave cricket. They think out of the box, and the way they let down England. To be very honest, that you won't be hopeful for rest of the 3 matches as well. How? That's if you watch that the way they are leading, their bowlers, they are bowling extraordinary well. And I was pretty much curious about Joe Root that he played nice cricket in last Test match, but in the first Test in the Ashes. But after that, now their batting collapsed and they lost with a huge margin, more than 250 runs.
You've always got news, K. Asif, so let me ask you this very directly. There are rumours, for me they're rumours, but obviously you can comment on them better, that there are problems in the English dressing room as well. There are some players who do not want to be part of the Test circuit anymore.
Well, if you talk about specifically, look, James Anderson, he's playing in his 40s, and you give this credit to them. And Ben Stokes, before the T20 World Cup, he informed that I'm not playing this World Cup and I'm concentrating on the red ball cricket. And yes, you rightly said that there are some rumours. But to be very honest, that as you know that, and as I know that, in the English side, they are very competitive side. Yes, they have the potential. Apart from these rumours, I appreciate that. The way Joe Root is leading, it's not a question you're winning or you're losing. Yes, when you lose, there is criticism. As what happened in the T20 World Cup, they fought nicely. Ian Morgan was in a nice touch. But now it's red ball cricket, and especially when you are playing against Australia in Ashes in Australia, it's not easy to win against them. But I'm hopeful that they got the potential. Apart from rumours, you should say that they got the potential, and they're very good in their batting. They're very good in their bowling as well. Yes, they're lacking now some confidences because when you are losing first match, you lost in second match, and all the pressure on you. So give them some time, and I'm hopeful that the next game would be interesting.
Well, if they lose the next one, it's all over, isn't it? The Ashes is done and dusted. But
why don't you think positive about them?
I just can't. I see their opening, then I see their middle order, and the biggest thing that makes me not be positive is that the leading wicket taker for England so far is Joe Root. So that gives me absolutely no positive.
But the positivity is that he's leading from the front.
Leading from the front. Very true. Leading from the front indeed. K. Asif, thank you so much for joining us for our segment of cricket. And before we go to a short break, we've got the recap of the segment that we've got for you about all we've discussed. And that was, of course, that we got through the Pakistan and New Zealand series that will take place. And we also discussed the Ashes as well. But on that note, we'll go to a short break. When we come back, we'll keep our track of football. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Sports Extra. Now, K. Asif might have been shown the red card, but we've still got a lot to discuss. We're going to be discussing football. Let's take a look at what we're discussing about all the hype about the Premier League, COVID concerns, and also the games as well. Let's take a look at this report, and then we'll come back.
Premier League has once again been struck by COVID outbreaks, leading to the postponement of even more fixtures. 6 out of 10 games this weekend were postponed, taking the tally from last week alone to 10 total games. The latest teams to have reported a surge in COVID cases include Manchester United, Brighton, Brentford, Norwich and Watford. The struggle of dealing with the Omicron variant thus far, coupled with the busiest winter football calendar in Europe's top 5 leagues, has led to all Premier League managers being called out to an emergency meeting with Premier League officials. Chelsea boss Thomas Tuchel had his team's request for game postponement against Wolves denied, with Tuchel being vocally critical of the Premier League's refusal to postpone the game. Tuchel's Chelsea side were amongst 8 teams to play this weekend, getting a draw as the games of the season so far.
Andrew Robertson's going to get a yellow card now. It's a red card for the Liverpool fullback.
There you go, all you need to know about what we're discussing. But before we move on to the game, Sabeel, what's going on? We've discussed this frequently, and once again we see that COVID now is hampering every plan that the Premier League probably had.
So we've been speaking a lot about this. It seems every week, unfortunately, we have a story about games being cancelled because of COVID and games being postponed because of this. We spoke about the protocols, and I think that's a big issue, is the protocols that are in place in the Premier League. We have examples abroad, for example, the NBA, of how a good bubble is done. They spend $180 million, which for these kinds of big organizations isn't the end of the world. They can afford to spend $180 million or around that much. And they played 170 odd games the whole season without a single person in staff, players, management, referees getting a positive case. So clearly there are bubbles at work. I think the protocols that the Premier League have in place are clearly not working. They might also be too confusing. Tuchel said that he read them and then forgot about them because they were so convoluted. Now, if a Premier League manager, a very smart, astute Premier League manager, is trying to manage all this and they don't even know what your guidelines are because they're so convoluted, it becomes very hard to follow.
That highlights the level of communication between the clubs and their owners and the Premier League management.
Yeah, 100%. So they've called an emergency meeting today, which we'll talk about, but I clearly think the protocols need to either be adjusted or communicated better, and they need to really get their act together because we are entering the busiest period of the calendar, this winter period. This league has a notoriously tough winter calendar. They don't have a winter break like the rest of the European leagues do, the top European leagues do. They have far more fixtures congested in a short amount of space. You have 10 or so games in the league, I think, to make up for, not to mention European fixtures coming up. UEFA have said all postponed fixtures need to be played by the end of December. So how are you going to manage this? You need to get the protocols under control now, have your emergency meeting, decide what needs to be done and sort it out.
Yeah, let me read out something that, made me lose my marbles. So you'll go absolutely bonkers when you hear this, what's been happening. So it says that unvaccinated players are causing disproportionate problems in Premier League. It's at 68% of individuals involved with the league, whether player, support staff or any other individual, 68% are double jabbed. It says in the English Premier League, 25%, which is a huge number, still have no intention of being vaccinated. Contrast with La Liga, where 92.8% are vaccinated, plus 4.3 with antibodies. ITV also reported the same, saying that the number of people vaccinated in the Premier League, including the players, has a very less ratio as compared to European leagues all around Europe. A big alarm, major alarm, because you've got an individual responsibility as well towards yourself, your community, your players, your support staff, even your children, your families as well. And then on top of that, I've been discussing this factor with you again and again, that it's not just related to playing in England. They've got to be traveling for away games as well when it comes to the Champions League and Europa League.
So I actually think that is a bit of a cop-out on the Premier League's part if we look at it and blame it all on individuals. I think, look, like I said about the NBA bubble, that was happening when there was no vaccine available, right? And they were still going without cases. If you have the right protocols, vaccination shouldn't make a difference if you're protecting people, right? Then cases shouldn't spread. Because we know the vaccine doesn't stop the spread of the disease. So if yes, as an individual, you should take the precautions so that you are not affected and those vulnerable around you are not affected by it. But I think the Premier League needs to take more responsibility, because they can use this tomorrow and go like, well, individuals aren't getting vaccinated, and this. It's like we've seen people when there was no vaccine doing better than what you're doing now. So clearly your protocols are poorly communicated and they're not very thorough. So I really don't think you can blame that proportion of people who are unvaccinated, because vaccinated people are also with your protocols getting sick.
Yeah.
Right now, there needs to be something done about the protocols in place when you are a multi-billion pound organization. It's not like we're talking about people in the poorest parts of a nation who need to go to work and are struggling to keep bubbles and all of these things, which are harder at that level. It's a lot easier at the professional level where you have all the resources to do these things.
But I just don't want to jinx it. But like I said, then leagues all around the world will keep a close eye on the English Premier League if things don't get better, because this might hamper international schedules and fixtures as well.
And it could ruin European.
Absolutely.
It could ruin the
Yeah.
European calendar for English Premier League sides.
Yeah.
And again, who does it affect? The fans. Because the first thing, I'm really afraid we're going to go back to empty stadiums, which I hope
that's
doesn't
not fun,
happen.
is it?
Because not fun for anybody. And I really hope, because the managers have been so against that happening, that they don't let that happen in the emergency meeting. They realize that the bubbles need to be better. It's not the fans' fault. They're not the ones who are bringing. It's clearly positive cases happen, and they're not doing the right precautions to get those people isolated in time.
But speaking on the positive note, for the games that were able to go ahead, have you seen the action so far, and what are we going through first, obviously? Because we've got some exciting games that have been able to take place, and some of the sides have been hampered with the results as well.
So, depending on which games we're talking about, I think the most exciting game of perhaps one of the most exciting games of the season took place in that 2-2 draw between Spurs and Liverpool. It was interesting for me because obviously Spurs took the lead. They were playing quite well on the counter. Looked like an Antonio Conte counter-attacking side, actually, which we've been speaking about a lot recently, that it'll take a bit of time for that system to work. But I think there's a few points of controversies, a few penalties not given. And the biggest issue for me is Harry Kane should have been sent off, in my opinion. Robertson rightfully got sent off towards the end of the game, but towards much before that, Harry Kane had a challenge. I think it was on Robertson, studs up, comes flying in, and he gets a yellow. So I definitely think Spurs should have been reduced to 10 men, but the action was non-stop and very exciting to watch.
That's been probably one of the biggest discussions on Twitter and various social media platforms about that Harry Kane challenge. And like you mentioned it, that you've got stuff like VR and everything involved.
Get too much stick, but I think he did lose a bit of control of this game. Harry Kane definitely, he does a lot of things which I feel him sent off in that game. But other than that, we saw other good games. Chelsea unlucky factor, haven't we, that Tuchel is now getting the true football. Obviously concerns are there, but still we've been able to get some games in progress as well. Let's take a look at the recap that we had of this segment, and then we move on forward. And of course, in the recap, we did tell you about COVID concerns that have been hampering games as well. We also talked about the matches that were able to take place, whether it was City dominating, whether it was Chelsea being frustrated, and of course, Liverpool and Tottenham also going towards no result, but obviously that red card decision, and then of course, not that red card decision, both become controversial as well. But that's the segment recap that we've got for you as well. But there's a bunch of other news to discuss as well. And when we talk about other news, like we said, we'll be discussing some major development in sports. It's a great sign that we know already that Pakistan has qualified for the next round, that is for the knockout stages of the Asian Champions Trophy hockey as well. So that's one good sign as well. Pakistan will be facing in their match tomorrow. They were able to beat Bangladesh 6-2 and qualify. But on the other hand, if we talk about in Pakistan, we had the 21st edition of our squash championship as well, where 8 countries were participating, more than 48 people from all these 8 countries, whether it was officials or players as well. It was great. We got champions crowned in both the men's and women's category as well. We've got all the details in the report that's coming up, but from me and the entire team of Sports Extra, it's goodbye for now. We'll catch you tomorrow once again with a whole bunch of news regarding sports that we'll be discussing and major development in sports as well. So you can definitely stay tuned. Also catch us on our social media platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you, but we leave you with this report on squash. It's goodbye for now.
21st Asian Individual Squash Championship for men and women organised by Pakistan Squash Federation has concluded at Musharraf Squash Complex in Islamabad. The men's event comprised 32 players, whereas the women's event had a 16 players draw. Apart from Pakistan, a group of international players, officials and referees from Hong Kong, Iran, Kuwait, Malaysia, Qatar, Singapore and Sri Lanka participated in the tournament. In the women's final, Hong Kong's Tong Wing defeated Malaysia's Rachel May Arnold with a game score of 3-0, while in the men's final, Malaysia's Ian Yao defeated Jip with a game score of 3-0 in 40 minutes and won the championship finals. Successful hosting of the mega event is reflective of Pakistan's commitment to promotion of sports both in country and at international level. Foreign players were pleased with the security arrangements, saying that Pakistan is a safe country.
I've won every match 3-0, but every single match was really tough. And also I'd like to thank Pakistan for the hospitality over the last week. Everything's been great. And I think the level of squash proved that all of us are comfortable and we can play our best here.
It's been a good experience here. I feel safe here, and the sponsors are doing a great job, and the venue is nice, and the glass court feels amazing. And then I think I hope Pakistan can keep growing, the squash can keep growing, and then we can have more good battle in here.